Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching today's session. So my name is Momina, and I am your session coordinator for the night. And today we are joined by Melanie Henriques. And you are a licensed paralegal, varying in numerous forms of law, from dealing with tenant and landlord disputes, if I'm correct, to many
Yes,
other practices. Why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll get started.
sure. So my name is Melanie. I'm a paralegal. I've been licensed since 2011. I just recently became partner at my firm. I practice in, like you were saying, a variety of areas: employment law, personal injury, insurance, landlord-tenant. Yeah, I've been doing this for almost 10 years now, mostly doing litigation work. Yeah, that's pretty much all. That's all there's to know about me.
Perfect. Not your favorite color? You don't want to add that in there?
Blue, always
Oh,
blue.
really? Mine too. Perfect.
Yeah, it's the best color.
It is. So we usually start these with some type of background in terms of your education. So I wanted to ask you what university you went to and what type of courses you took in your undergraduate.
So I actually didn't go to university at all. I actually just went to college. I went to Sheridan College in Brampton. I did the 2-year paralegal program there. And pretty much right out of school, I got a job actually assisting another paralegal, and then slowly kind of moved up within the firm. So I just did 2 years. Some of the courses I did some employment law. I did I remember accounting we did, criminal, some insurance, I believe. It was so long ago. I'm drawing a blank a little bit, but yeah, it was only a 2-year program. I'm not someone who likes to be in school, to be honest. I like to just kind of be busy and working. So I was interested actually to become a lawyer. And then when I kind of looked into it, I was in high school and just saw the requirements of undergrad degree and going into law school. It just wasn't something that for me was appealing. I really wanted to get right into it right away. And so I decided to take this other route, becoming a paralegal. And it just really interests me. I really enjoy how, the cases that I work on are very, they're not these huge high value cases, but they're very meaningful nonetheless. A lot of human rights work actually falls in kind of a jurisdiction that most paralegals could practice in, and I really enjoyed that type of law. So this is just the route that kind of life took me instead of going into university or anything. So I'm a little bit different that way.
So you mentioned this 2-year paralegal program. I actually haven't heard of this. Do you mind elaborating on it a bit for our viewers and myself?
Of course, of course. So in Ontario, the paralegals have been licensed since about 2007. It's one of the, I believe it's the only province that it has paralegals that are licensed and can actually practice law. BC, there is some practice you can do, but it's a little bit limited. Same, I believe, in Alberta. So these schooling or training behind it is there's a couple of different schools that do different types of programs. You can do an accelerated 1-year program, you can do 2 years, you can even do 4 years. It just depends on the school that you want to go to and how much you want to do. And essentially, it's kind of, it's fairly different than obviously going to law school. But it's, it focuses on all the things that paralegals can do. So like things, like I was saying, like employment law, litigation, focuses a lot on opening your own firm. That's a big thing that these programs focus on. And similar-ish to articling, once you do your 1-year, 2-year, 4-year course, you have a placement that you do. It's not as long as articling. It's only 120 hours. And then you can kind of go right into writing your exam and then go right into practice. So the scope that paralegals can do or can practice in are much more limited, obviously, than a lawyer. And the schooling kind of follows that. It's a much shorter program than going to law school.
So I know you work in various forms of law. Do you mind explaining like what you do in each of them? Just because they're all so different, and I think it'd be beneficial for our viewers to understand each aspect.
Yeah. So right now, my main practice is employment law related. I enjoy it the most. It's the most interesting, exciting, I think. With everything going on, especially with the vaccines in the workplace, it's been a huge part of our work and kind of educating the public about that. in employment law, I mean, it could be a variety of things. You're talking human rights violations in the workplace, work safe or work injuries, whether an employee, when they've been let go, what type of severance they're entitled to, a variety of different topics. I also do accident benefits. So that's claims where someone has been injured in a motor vehicle accident and needs to make a claim with their own insurer for medical benefits, income replacement benefits, things like that to involve them to get themselves better from the accident. Landlord and tenant, it's not a main area that I practice in, but mostly I've done tenant side work. People trying to evict their tenants illegally, not repairing the apartment or the condo, whatever they live in, and needing to go to the tribunal to get an order for them to do that. And recently I've started doing some short-term disability insurance work, people that are denied those claims, and then basically fighting those. Those are kind of the main areas that I practice in now. So it is a variety, but they kind of each have their own different and interesting aspects to them, but employment law is kind of my bread and butter right now.
I find that interesting because you said that the scope of paralegals is limited, but then you have all of these various forms of law that we tend to jump around from.
Yeah, I mean, it's limited. It is limited in terms of the value of the case, but there's still so much you can do. Litigation I do a lot of litigation, small claims court work, human rights tribunal work, Ontario Labor Relation work, Human Rights Commission. There's actually quite a lot that paralegals can do that I think that they don't even realize that you can do, or that, the public doesn't really realize what kind of, what they can bring to the table. And I kind of like that underdog mentality kind of thing. And so I kind of thrive in that type of headspace. So there's a lot that we can do. And, we can't do things like family law, claims over 35,000, criminal things like that. But what we can do is important, and it is valuable as a service to the public from, many perspectives, but mostly a cost saving perspective to the client.
Of course, I 100% agree. I was wondering if you could describe like your average day as a paralegal. What do you actually do? I feel like a lot of us understand paralegals in terms of the sense of the name that, yeah, she's a paralegal, but what does that like mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really not entirely different than a lawyer, at least what I do, because I do a lot of litigation. So, most of my days, what our firm does specifically is we are assigned, new client leads. So the client is called the firm, express, here's what my case is about, and they're assigned to either a lawyer or paralegal, depending on what type of case it is. So I can do up to 4 of those a day, sometimes more. So brand new person. So we talk to them on the phone, explain what their rights and entitlements are, depending on whatever situation they're having. And then it could be anything from after that, drafting claims, drafting demand letters, negotiating with on files, settlement conferences, preparing for trial. I mean, it's kind of nonstop. I mean, pretty busy days right now. This week I have 2 settlement conferences to prepare for. I have 2 trials coming up later this year, so I'm going to start preparing for those. So, besides really the title and I guess the scope, and some of the steps are a bit different in small claims and in Superior, there's a lot less going on. There's not things like motions or discoveries, things like that, like you would in Superior. It's really a lot of the same work. You're kind of all arguing the same principles in the, whatever area law you're doing, but just some of the steps are a little bit different. So, compared to me and my colleagues that are lawyers, our days are almost identical in terms of what we're actually doing.
Wow, interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Would you, discussing like some of the obstacles that you face, like to get to where you are right now in terms of being a paralegal? For a lot of lawyers, when they talk about the type of obstacles they face, they discuss law school. But obviously, as a paralegal, you never had that obstacle. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering what obstacles you encountered in your like journey of law, and then how you overcame those difficulties.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, yeah, my program, it was a 2-year program, didn't need an undergrad. I know that law school is much more involved, just schooling wise and training wise. And just, I think those hurdles of just having your head in the game for that long, it's tough. But, from my perspective, when I graduated and got my license, I was really young. I think I was just turned 21 or something. Oh, wow. And I didn't have any real experience because I didn't have a lot of working, life that had started. I was working part-time at Tim Hortons, when I was in school and in high school and stuff. So didn't have a lot of real world experience. So I went into it being like, okay, I'm just going to try and start to be like an assistant or something a bit more entry level to get my foot in the door, which I think is very common for paralegals, where it's not as much for lawyers because you have that articling term. So I think for a paralegal, you kind of have to start a little bit almost below what you actually went to school for, just to gain some of that experience, because it is a big responsibility. I mean, yes, the program is shorter and you're not doing as much, but you're still providing people legal services. And so it's important that, I think you get a bit of a grasp how a firm works. How do you talk to people? How do you, try and get a mentor, things like that. So when I started, I was assisting another paralegal, and I wanted that kind of mentorship. I wanted that experience. What am I all doing here? And so, wanting to kind of, build up that experience. And when I eventually started practicing about a year later, providing legal services, I was young, I was a woman, I wasn't a lawyer, and those three things alone, I think really other lawyers, especially older men, really kind of tried to use that to kind of belittle me in a lot of ways. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know what's going on. That type of kind of attitude. It was very, very common. I got that a lot. And like I was saying earlier, that kind of underdog mentality I live in that headspace. So I said, listen, if you think that I don't know what I'm talking about, let's go to a hearing, let's go to a trial, and I can show you that I do know what I'm talking about. Or, even through negotiation, just trying to, I kind of had to work a little bit harder just to be on the same page, just because I was almost immediately, seen as less than. Yeah.
I cannot imagine how agitating that must have been.
Yeah, it was rough, but you get through it. I mean, look, people are going to underestimate you all the time in various aspects of your life. It's how you deal with it, right? And so, I always thought it was kind of like a game. I kind of enjoyed it. I liked being seen as an underdog in some ways, but at the same time, it could be frustrating because I could see that even colleagues of mine that were men that were lawyers, I would have a file against an opposing counsel that was the same as whoever I was working with, and they would give him a really good deal. They were really reasonable, and then I'd get on the phone with them and they were very belittling, kind of talked down to me, didn't think I knew what I was talking about, just because of, I think, some of those things. But you work through it, and you just kind of have to, I did a lot more trials than probably a lot of other lawyers would, because I felt that need to show that I knew that I was talking about.
So in terms of like your journey as a paralegal, you said you started as an associate, right? So how did you climb your way up? An assistant to an associate? Wow. Sorry, can you hear me? I think you froze. That's not good. Sure. 1 second, let me just refresh the Zoom meeting and then hopefully we can restart. Maybe it's my Wi-Fi. Are you better? Can you see me? Nope. It is my Wi-Fi. I'm sorry. I apologize. Give 1 minute. It should be working.
Can you see me now?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I apologize. My Wi-Fi is notoriously bad.
Okay, that's okay. No worries.
It's all better now. I was asking, you started as an assistant.
Yes.
Okay, that's amazing. How did you work your way from getting coffee to being partner?
So I chose, like I said, to kind of start off as an assistant just to get a little bit more experience in the law world, and kind of boots in the ground of what exactly is out there. And so it kind of, my kind of journey is a little bit weird just because a lot of it was, happenstance and luck. So the paralegal I was working for, she actually was involved in a car accident, nothing like super, super serious, but she kind of had some injuries as a result of it. And that's actually why she hired me, was to help her with some of her files and stuff. And so a few months into that, it just became too much for her. And she said, listen, I need to take a break from the profession. Can you take over all of my files? And I said, sure, why not? When am I going to get the chance to really just kind of dive into it? So I took over her practice, and the firm that I work now was through them. And then about a year and a half after doing that, at the time I was just doing accident benefits work, nothing else. But a year and a half after that, I talked to one of the partners and said, listen, I think I'm ready to take on more responsibility and work. Can I come move to your Toronto office? I want to kind of, because I was actually working in an office by myself in Cambridge. And so he's like, yeah, for sure, come work for our office. And I actually assisted him for a year while his assistant was on a mat leave, while also handling these accident benefits files. So it's kind of two jobs at the same time. And so that was, a very stressful, but, rewarding year. And he was a great mentor, brought me to mediations, discoveries, client meetings. I mean, whatever he was doing, he's like, you can always come tag along. And then after she came back, I really started to dive into employment law work. And that's where I really was like, this is what I want to do. I love doing this work. After doing that for, 5-6 years, I met with them in the summer, and they decided that they wanted to ask me to join the partnership. I'd been at the firm, collectively for almost 10 years since I pretty much started. And so it was a huge honor. I was ecstatic. I couldn't believe it. They were really just kind of rewarding the hard work that I'd given to the firm. I worked really, really hard for them, and I really love being there. And, I'm not very shy about expressing maybe thoughts or opinions I have of, how I think what could benefit the firm, marketing ideas, making sure that the firm fabric, the social fabric of it is good. I love who I work with, and I want to make sure everyone else knows who they work with. And so, yeah, that's, it's crazy that it's been almost 10 years, but that was, just announced this summer. So I was very, very excited for that. And it's been a lot of fun, I guess.
That is a very cool underdog story, just so you know.
Yes,
So
thank you.
Have you ever felt the need to essentially transition? What I mean by that is, have you ever thought that you've been practicing as a paralegal for some time now, 10 years. Have you ever thought of potentially maybe now doing it as a lawyer? I know you said school isn't really your thing, but has that ever crossed your mind? I'm just curious about this.
It did actually. Now, I guess it was, I think 2018 or 2017, I seriously thought about it. I was like, I've done the paralegal thing now for a while, and I think that I could become a lawyer doing this. And so I studied for the LSAT. I wrote it 3 times over 2 years, and didn't really excel at it. To be honest, maybe I'm making myself look not like the smartest person, but I thought it was a really hard test. And I was studying while having a very heavy full-time job. So that was kind of challenging. I applied to several law schools. Unfortunately, didn't get into any of them. And then after kind of 2 years of doing that, I decided, listen, like it was meant to be, it would have happened. It didn't. I'm so happy with what I'm doing already that I'm okay with the fact that this didn't come to fruition. I gave it my best shot. So I tried it, and turns out the universe said it's not for you. And that I'm totally okay with that decision. But, I commend anybody who gets into any law school, because it's, especially in Canada, but I think primarily in Ontario, it has some of the, the top law schools, personally, I think, in the world. And so, actually a couple of my colleagues at work at the firm, a few of them actually just got into various law schools this fall, and I'm just so excited for them because they're just some of the smartest people that I know, and they're, in more of administrative positions. So I think it's so great that, from in the firm, we're seeing so much success that way. So yeah, ultimately I tried it. It didn't obviously work out, but I don't regret it at all. It was a great experience, and I learned a lot from it. And again, it gave me just that much more an appreciation for the lawyers that we produce. Yeah, because they're very, very difficult law schools to get in Ontario, and so yeah, but turns out it wasn't for me.
But I am curious about the fact that you have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge on law, obviously. So do you really need to go to law school? Because if you're thinking about it, in Canada, all you need to do to practice is pass the LSAT, the bar, and then the solicitor's exam. So is law school a necessity? Because you really do have a lot of the knowledge that you would have learned in law school. Not that you
Mhm.
wouldn't have enriched this knowledge if you went, but I don't know, just hypothetically, if you passed the LSAT, the bar, and the solicitor's exam without ever going to law school, you would be a lawyer now, right?
I guess hypothetically, but I also think that's the entire premise of the show Suits, is it not?
Yeah, I watched season 1 of that show and then left it, so I wouldn't know unless it was.
Yeah, I guess hypothetically, I guess, I mean, I know that obviously going is a requirement, but the one thing too that at least for me, just the period of of time in my life that I would have been in school and articling and all that, it would have been kind of my early 30s. And, I thought, do I really want to almost kind of restart my life at that point? I was so happy in what I was doing and everything was going really well. It would have been great. It honestly would have. It would it's not that I'm not disappointed at all that it didn't happen. I tried and it didn't work out. And honestly, I think that this line of work is more for me. Like I said, I love that underdog mentality, and a lot of these files that I have are these smaller value files where companies, lawyers don't look at, they don't think it's worth it, and I think that they are, and I think that they're important cases that need to be dealt with. And so I'm still happy in what I'm doing now. And yeah, I mean, if I had become a lawyer, great, would have been really cool, but it's not something that I'm at remotely upset about that didn't work out or anything like that. It just wasn't meant to be.
No, and especially if you're happy with the job you're doing right now. I was just specifically curious about it because I know you said school isn't your thing. And I was just thinking about it. And I was like, well, you have all of this knowledge. Do you really need to go to school? All you technically need to do is pass the test. So
Yeah. I mean, I'll try it out one day and let you know, and probably give you some sort of a slap on the wrist for it, but
yeah. Hey, what law school did you go to?
don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. um, I did want to ask you another question, but I'm completely blanking on what it was now. I wrote it down in my notes because, yes, what I wanted to ask you, another question that I had for you was, as a paralegal, do you get a lot of FaceTime with your clients, or is majority of your job just like slammed in paperwork all day?
No, I have, a very heavy caseload. Now with the pandemic, we don't really see clients as much. We can Zoom with them and things like that. But in terms of obviously pre-pandemic, we used to come in the office if they had to sign something or to drop something off. But no, I mean, I deal with my own clients directly. I have my own file load. I don't require supervision of a lawyer. And so I think right now I have somewhere around like 130 individual clients. So I try to give them as much face time as I can. But yeah, I mean, I think there is kind of this, and I think almost not a misunderstanding, but not a clarity in terms of what paralegals do. I mean, they really can handle their own files. They they deal with clients directly, and so you get that face time, like you were saying. It's really just the value of the case in certain areas of law that are the difference makers in terms of the difference between paralegals and lawyers. So yeah, I get a lot of good face time with my clients. Have a really good relationship with all of them. I think it's really important that you treat each client individually, like they're your only one. It's crazy how people don't really, I think, appreciate that. They just try and to build that relationship with the client. I see a lot of people when they have their own clients, they just kind of don't know how to talk to them. They're kind of cold, or they maybe are kind of explain their files in too much like legalese terms and just don't get to kind of break it down to them. So those are always important tips I give to any student or other paralegal, or even a lawyer, really, I guess it could apply, is talk to these people as if you're talking to a friend. Like, they don't know anything about what the law is or what topic you're even talking about, so break it down for them. So yeah, I really enjoy all that FaceTime with clients and that relationship building with them.
Yeah, nice. As an extrovert and sociable person, I've always wondered if paralegals get a lot of time to chat and talk to people and make sure they get that FaceTime with their clients. I also think it's important to have that type of relationship with someone that you're working for.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm very, very close with my partners in sense of from a work relationship and from a personal relationship. Like I was saying earlier, I love everyone that I work with, and I really try and, make sure everyone at the firm, from assistants to admin to accounting to whoever, kind of enjoy that relationship of working with another. You're with these people 8 hours a day. I mean, you're with them more than anybody else in your life. So you want to make sure that they're having a good time, that they're enjoying it. So I really focus a lot on that, in addition to kind of everything else, just to, do social events or just to check in. And, and the thing about our firm that I really commend is that they don't treat anybody any higher up than the other. Everyone is completely on the same page and level in terms of their importance to the firm, and there's no hierarchy, and I can genuinely say that there isn't. If someone in accounting or admin or clerk has an idea that could better the firm, or suggestion of doing something, it's listened to just as much as anybody else, any partner or associate, senior associate, doesn't matter.
My father and my sister are both lawyers. My brother's in law school. And I've never heard of that in the history of any of the law firms that any of them have ever worked at, having like zero hierarchy. So that's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bringing TV shows back up, have you seen The Office?
Of course, yes.
That is what I want like my future job to be, but like less problems. Denise has a question in the chat. What does becoming a partner really mean or entail? And I think by that she means, well, what's really the difference between the partner of the firm rather than just another paralegal, I guess?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, first of all, a paralegal being a partner at a firm that isn't theirs, or is, a couple of people, it is, it doesn't happen very often.
I've never heard of that actually. Yeah.
It is rare. Yeah. I looked it up after, and I found, I think, 3 or 4 paralegals that were partners at firms. And I didn't even really know the thing either, but they were kind of smaller firms, but, not take away from obviously the accomplishment, but even still, 4 or 5 of us out of the thousands that are practicing is still, it's not, common, but, I'm looking forward to the day where it's not that uncommon to hear. Now, the difference is usually the level of responsibility. There are different types of partners. A lot in the US and some of the bigger firms here, a partner, they're usually like an income partner where they take a percentage of the firm's, profit, things like that. But aside from that, partners typically have, more responsibility in the firm. They have a say in the direction of the firm. They have a say in terms of, how things should, operate. Usually they'll have, they'll oversee newer associates, new paralegals, trying to do like a mentorship with them. So they're kind of, have responsibility making sure the firm as a whole is running smoothly and kind of up to snuff in terms of what the firm's kind of core values are. So one way I put it is that the reason I wanted to become a partner, because I had posed it sort of to them a while ago, was I wanted a seat at the table. I thought that my voice was important, and I put a lot of work into the firm. And I thought that, I want to be there when decisions are being made. And that's kind of what a partner, what their role is just in that decision-making process that, the named partners are usually part of.
So I hope that answers your question, Denise. If you have any more, just send it in the chat. Thank you so much. And in terms of being partner, that is such a cool job, by the way. I love it.
It's massive thing.
Yeah, it's so funny. I love it. In terms of being partner, let's say there's an important decision at your firm as a hypothetical, and one of your other partners is disagreeing with you. How do you handle that? And how do you handle that type of situation if they're disagreeing with you and you're both partners? And then what do you end up making as a decision for the firm?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, luckily, all the other partners in my firm, I'm actually good friends with a lot of them in real life, aside from even before becoming partner, even some of them are partners. This is a situation where there's a disagreement either, in the direction of the firm, or even, how a file should be run, something like that. I think it's just important to kind of get on, some even playing ground in terms of, okay, well, what do we agree on, and can we kind of work from there? I mean, at the end of the day, you want to be civil with your colleagues, and you don't want to get into some sort of huge argument over something that maybe has a resolution, potentially bringing in, talking to other partners or other individuals, say, listen, we're having this problem. Does anybody else have any suggestions on how it should be resolved? Because that input could help as well. But luckily I haven't really yet at least gotten into any arguments or any kind of disagreements with anyone that I work with or any partners. But most people are pretty level-headed, and if you just kind of approach like, listen, I respectfully disagree with what you're saying. This is why I think what I'm saying makes more sense or is a better outcome to whatever the issue is a good way to approach it. But yeah, I mean, you have to depends on the situation, right? How serious it is, or maybe how not serious it is. Can you kind of find something that can work and everybody can be happy or even mildly happy?
Yeah, because especially if there's like no hierarchy in your firm, I was wondering, how do you come to decisions then if there's no like absolute like power out there? But that makes sense. It's important to have that relationship with your colleagues too, that you're comfortable enough to talk about these decisions respectfully.
Of course, yeah. I mean, when I say no hierarchy, I mean, it's not as if the opinion or the voice of someone who is a clerk or administrative isn't as important as someone who is a partner. I mean, in terms of decision making, obviously that's why there are partners, just to help kind of steer that ship of the firm. But it's not as if they're the only voices. Everyone's opinion does matter in terms of, I think, how a successful firm should run. I mean, I'm biased because it's the only firm I've worked at, but I'm a true believer that the grass is not always greener on the other side. I mean, I think that the way the firm operates is very different than a lot of other firms that I know. And when I tell people that, but the hierarchy thing, they are also surprised. A paralegal being a partner, also surprised. They're always trying to kind of break the old mold of how firms work. Even for example, this whole thing with the pandemic. There are so many firms that could not understand how to operate remotely. They had to lay off staff because they didn't know how to get them a laptop to work from home. They just couldn't break out of this old model of, being in the office, having to, use a Rolodex, just, to use an example. And our firm, pivoted. Everyone's at home. Everyone is still at home. There's no plans to force anybody back to the office, and we're still fully busier than ever. We doubled in size actually since the pandemic, which is, I think, almost unheard of, just because we were able to now access a much wider range of employees because they are remote. Now we're not just stuck to the GTA. We can be, employing anybody anywhere. We're always looking for the best people. So I think that's something that a lot of firms didn't really think about in terms of how to kind of expand and pivot off this whole, unfortunate pandemic.
And I actually love that about your firm, that there's not hierarchy in terms of everyone's voice is heard. I guess I was more curious as to what if two partners butt heads, as the same type of voice.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I think that most people, in those positions, I try to even think of any kind of situation where I would really be totally against something someone else would say, just in general. But like I said, I mean, all the partners, most partners at firms will meet. They'll have, whatever it is, every month or every few months, a meeting to discuss, certain things that are going on or next steps of the firm, and everyone kind of gets their say. And some firms use a voting system, so they try to keep it kind of, civil that way. Or every kind of firm is different in terms of how they use their partners. But I think just any kind of problem-solving skill in general will resolve any discourse you have with the partner.
Nice. Well, we actually blasted through the list of questions that I had for you. This is really nice. And they were all really concrete and in-depth answers. So thank you for that. I'm going to end the session a bit early, but before we do, I just want to ask you if you could do a final piece of advice to our future aspiring law students, lawyers, paralegals. Maybe something you wish that you would have done, or just something that you think would serve as motivation or encouragement.
Yeah, that's a great way to end it. I mean, look, my piece of advice I give to everybody, which is unconventional, is honestly to fake it till you make it. That is genuinely, I follow that by everything I've ever done. If I'm unclear or unsure about something, never let them see you sweat. Don't be kind of, pompous about anything, if you're not sure, but we do a lot of work with paralegal students and articling students, and they'll come and I'm so nervous about this, I don't know what to do. And listen, fake it till you make it. Just be as certain as you can about something, and just don't let them see you be worried or nervous. You don't know what you're doing, because the second that opposing counsel or another client or even your client can sense that you're unsure about something and that you're kind of wavering, they will lose faith in you, or opposing counsel will eat you up for that. So just, be confident in what you're doing. Obviously, preparation for everything is key, but sometimes there are situations that come up that you're not prepared for, that you don't know the right answer to. But just, be confident in it anyways. I can't obviously speak to any kind of law school experience, but I know that especially with the pandemic, it's a lot different. It's a different experience altogether, just either being remote or having a limited classroom. But I guess, for those students that are in law school right now, I mean, it will fly by. Some of the lawyers that I work with, some of their fondest memories are from law school. They have, really lifelong friendships from it. They build relationships, in their careers with people they went to law school with. So networking is really, really important too. You never know who you're going to run into again, another file, or, you need their help from the future. Use that. Yeah, again, like I said, not very conventional advice in terms of the fake it till you make it, but I swear and I live by it.
I can tell you for a fact, I've never heard of that in any of these sessions, so I appreciate that. That's very innovative advice. I will remember that and the underdog mentality.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and taking the time to talk about this. I know I really appreciate it. A lot of this was innovative advice that I've never heard of before, despite all the numerous amount of sessions I do. And I hope that a lot of our viewers out there also got a lot of benefit from this. I know they must have learned a lot. And thank you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Take care.